Good evening and welcome to Wide Angle for insights into the world of diplomacy, defense and strategy. Tonight we have something very special, a discussion on ancient India's greatest political thinker, Kautilya, and his work Arthashastra. His great treatise was discovered in 1904 in Mysore and published in 1909. Today, more than 100 years later, there's growing worldwide interest in Kautilya's thoughts on strategy. Last week, we had a big conference in the Institute for Defense Studies on the work of Kautilya. The National Security Advisor, Shiv Shankar Menon, was present there, and he underlined the importance of studying Kautilya and understanding the essence of his thought and applying it to the pursuit of India's national security strategy today. So to discuss Kautilya, his work, his thought, and his relevance today, I have a very learned panel with me this evening. I have Ambassador Vishvanathan, who's had a long and distinguished career with the Indian Foreign Service for nearly 4 decades. He's currently with the Observer Research Foundation. I have Dr. Medha Bisht, Assistant Professor of International Relations at the South Asia University, and Dr. Kalyan Raman, Research Fellow at the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis. Kalyan, if I may come first to you, why Kautilya and why now? Why is there so much interest today in Kautilya? And why is it that the IDSA, where you work, has made this a special project to study Kautilya is Arthashastra?
The study of, study of Kautilya's Arthashastra is part of a larger study project that we are trying to do, which is to reclaim our ancient indigenous historical knowledge. I think wisdom lies in many of these texts. It's just not Kautilya's Arthashastra, which is of course the most important treatise on statecraft, on diplomacy, on war. But also other texts, of course, like Tirukkural. Tiruvalluvar's Tirukkural has so many passages on, kingship, on forts, on how to accumulate wealth, what kind of envoys to choose, employment of spies, etc. So this is something that it's a larger thing that we are trying to do. And I think the relevance, the National Security Advisor very correctly said, this is the second, the Kautilyan moment has arrived. I think the importance of this lies in the fact that the world around us is fundamentally transforming in many ways. Most important is this shift in relative power from the West to the East, and the rise of Asia. More importantly, the rise of China is a very important phenomenon in international politics. India's own emergence, terrorism, nuclear weapons. It's a whole mix of factors that are impinging on India's national security, and we need to navigate through this, and simple policies may no longer, we need much more deliberative policies and strategies. And I think where else better to learn some wisdom than from ancient texts.
You said Arthashastra is not the only one. I mean, I think there is the Hitopadesha, there is Panchatantra, Tirukkural you mentioned. There are a whole lot of texts. So one hopes that your team is going to work and look at all these texts and distill some of the wisdom for India today.
Yeah, we hope so. We're just a very small group of people involved now. But in the last 2 years, since we started this in 2012, I think we find this resonance not only in terms of support from the government. The NSA has been there for 3 of our major conferences in the last 2 years. But also in terms of the international, I think it's a very distributed set of people and scholars in several universities in India and abroad working on these issues, and I think we are trying to kind of bring them together. So not only on the Arthashastra, but later as the moss gathers around this rock that we have set rolling, hopefully that there will be greater purchase and many more people will join us in this effort.
Medha, if I might come to you, I mean, I think there's some controversy whether Mr. Kautilya, if we can call him that, was one person, were there a lot of them, was it actually accumulated knowledge that got compiled into one book called Arthashastra? You've written a lot about him, so could you tell us a bit about the man, how this book came about, and the context in which this became an important text for ancient India?
Well, to start with Kautilya, Kautilya was an advisor, tutor, and mentor, we all know, to Chandragupta Maurya. Not only to Chandragupta Maurya, but also to Bindusara, his son. And the sheer depth of Kautilya can be gauged from the fact of the expanse of Mauryan Empire, which started from Magadha, went to northern Himalayas, then down to Pakistan, Balochistan, some parts of East Iran, and also some parts of Afghanistan, particularly Herat and Kandahar. And given the sheer expanse, not only horizontally but also vertically, that the southward expansion which happened during Bindusara's reign, it really tells a lot about Kautilya as an advisor who was really the man behind this expansion. As far as the number of Arthashastras are concerned, well, yes, there is of course a controversy. There are 17 Arthashastras, so to say, which are written, and in fact 14 of them were written before Kautilya, before the Kautilya's Arthashastra, which we're talking about right now. But the most authentic of them is of course the Kautilya's Arthashastra, which was written during Chandragupta Maurya's time.
BC,
Yes. The manuscript though got lost somewhere on the Gupta period, and then only was found, as you said, in 1904. Published in 1909, then translated in 1915.
Thanks, and I think Ambassador Vishwanathan, I think could you tell us, now we've heard about the context in which this was written at a period when the Mauryan kingdom was expanding. No, but could you tell us something about the essence of the book? What is the book about? I mean, the title itself has been interpreted differently by different people. Artha generally means only economic, but most of us know that it also has politics, statecraft, etc. So what is the core of this book?
See, when people talk of Kautilya's Arthashastra, the first thing that comes to my mind is relations between states. But that is only a very small part of Arthashastra. Arthashastra is actually a very comprehensive treatise on the entire statecraft. It includes internal administration, including use of espionage, state economy, social and other problems. So it is actually a holistic view of how to run a state. In fact, it's a very practical approach that Kautilya took of how a king can act and how he can act in the best interests of the people. And the two basic elements, two aims of Arthashastra are Yogatshema and Rakshana of the subjects, basically meaning that the overall welfare of the people and the protection of the people. That's what is today's state all about. I mean, security and prosperity of the people. That was the main aim, and within that framework, Kautilya tried to define how a king should go about achieving both Rakshana and Yogatshema.
If I come back to all three of you, I think starting with Kalyan, why did this disappear? I think why is it that our contemporary discourse on security, you are in a research think tank, why is it that there's no, why don't we use him more often in our studies, in how we look at and think about the world today?
I think there are two aspects here. One, of course, since independence, when this whole IR, international relations and strategic studies as a subset of it came into being, we partly completely ignored the theoretical aspects, the conceptual aspects, because we thought it was all Western, power politics and whatnot. And in that sense, Kautilya's Arthashastra, which is a supreme text on power politics and realpolitik, in a way fell into that category. But also I think that at the same time we had this love-hate relationship with Western literature on international relations. So we kind of depended more on Western interpretations. For instance, just to give an example, Hans Morgenthau's book, Politics Among Nations, is the Bible for, I think, all of us who studied in JNU. And he bases his text on this ancient Hindu wisdom of Kautilya's Arthashastra. And we have completely, while Morgenthau is a Bible for us in international politics, we have completely ignored Arthashastra.
Kalyan talked about why we, at least those of you, we do research on international affairs, didn't pay attention to Kautilya. But what about teaching international relations? You see some of that coming back today. there's a way of promoting understanding of Kautilya in contemporary study of international relations.
Well, yes, I do see that. But before that, I would say, and that's my understanding, that the subcontinent has witnessed two partitions, 1947 and 1971. And of course, going to a common civilizational past was not possible then as it is now, because our memories stop at 1947. It's a phase of violent memories. And Arthashastra, so to say, I think is a very effective effective entry point to talk about common civilizational past, to talk about a cultural past. And there is where we're really getting on to right now. As someone, I guess, this book in the saga by Edzaz Hassan, he said we all are, yes, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, Indians, but at the same time we are somebodies. And that's where I really see the relevance of Kautilya. But yes, coming back to your second question on whether it's really getting back, yes, of course, it is indeed. Yeah. There are many universities who are coming up on various institutes on Kautilya's Arthashastra. And also in South Asian University, we have this course called Political Theory, where we do discuss the idea of the state, where Kautilyan interpretation is one of them.
Thank you. Ambassador Vishwanathan, diplomatic service, as far as I know, we have not really taught Kautilya, although we know more than nearly 70 years of independence. Why is it that this was neglected? Because Nehru himself once took the pen name Chanakya when he was writing on a pseudonym, but he never talks about him. Why is that Nehru ignored Kautilya?
I am glad that Kautilya's Arthashastra is coming back and there are lots of academic studies. But as a Foreign Service officer, when I joined in 1974, I was quite amazed to find that Arthashastra was not compulsory reading for us. It should have been. Like Sun Tzu is in China, or Machiavelli is taught in Europe. But unlike Sun Tzu and Machiavelli, Kautilya had the unique position of being both a theoretician and a practitioner. So it should have been actually a compulsory reading, but there was not even enough discussions during our training. So I was quite amazed. I have been asking people, and there can be various reasons which are just speculation. Some of the reasons that come to my mind, one is that soon after independence, the Indian elite wanted to distance themselves away from some of the old Indian traditions and leave the baggage out. Kind of.
So it is a more liberal worldview that...
Yeah, they wanted to kind of become modern. And for the last 300 years in world history, modernization has been synchronous with westernization. That could be one reason. The second reason is there was also influence by some of the Western scholars who argued that Kautilya's Arthashastra is actually immoral or amoral. And it doesn't stand with the basic Indian principles. The third argument was that many people said in the land of Buddha and Gandhi, a work like Arthashastra, which talks of realpolitik, is actually out of place. And there can even be a fourth reason that whichever way you look at it, Arthashastra does mention about the Varna system, because at that time Varna system was still in existence. Yeah. And India having got independence and with all the problems, did we want to have a deep study of a treatise where Varna system was talked about? But the problem was that it was such a rich source of knowledge that just because some parts of it were not politically correct, to throw the whole thing out was like throwing the baby with the bathwater. Yeah.
So I think just briefly, I want all three of you to comment. I mean, the tension between India's sense of moral politic after independence as a newly independent country, and the compulsions of dealing with the real world. So is that tension? I mean, between moral politic and real politic, is the way Kautilya helps us to resolve that? Is Kautilya just about being cynical, amoral, or is there a moral content to what he's saying in Arthashastra? Briefly.
I think Medha would speak about it a little bit more, but there is political virtue, as she will talk about. There is an element of dharma. Whatever action that the king or the state takes should be within the confines of dharma, at least within the domestic sphere. In the international sphere, of course, we know it is
an anarchic
world. In Arthashastra talks about the law of the fishes, the big fish eating, Matsyanaya. Big fish eating the small fish. So there is a greater latitude for doing what you needed to do, essentially to protect and promote your interests, and also at the same time, very importantly, to expand your interest, to expand your realm. As Professor Patrick Olivelle pointed out during our seminar the other day, that what is a warrior if he doesn't engage in conquest? But that doesn't, today the world is very different.
Gita as well.